So what we really need to work on, us as manufacturers, is to build partnerships in America and other places as well with the water authorities, so that we give them all the specifications and all the tools to understand what it's all about and how safe it is. Because what we noticed in Australia with water authorities and plumbing inspectors, they were worried about backflow and contamination of the main supply, etc. But we succeeded in demonstrating it's not the case. So it's really a matter to give people a chance to shift to alternative water supply, and there is a need for it. As I was waiting at the airport, I came across this National Geographic issue, April 2010. And here it says, "Water, our thirsty world." And the reality today is that America, the average American is using 100 gallons per day of water. In Australia, we're achieving nearly 40 gallons per day, 60% less. You can do it. America can do it. It's just a matter of educating and getting all the regulations up to speed. Now, if you have a look inside this issue, there is a map of places in the world that suffer from water stress. And you can see very well that the western part of America is all red on this map, along with China and the Middle East. All right.
And John, same question. What are the impediments to getting your product more widely used and accepted?
Well, I was going to say my colleagues certainly have covered a lot of the barriers that are out there, but I think one of the biggest barriers we have is that water is just so cheap right now, that it's so inexpensive, and that most Americans don't ever think about the cost of it. The water prices in most communities don't reflect the true cost of delivering that water, so it's kind of like we're selling a hybrid car when gas is 25 cents a gallon. It's very difficult to cost justify these systems that are able to take water and reuse that and make it ready for other purposes. So, thankfully we have a lot of action going on in the communities from regulatory standpoints and others that are helping to push this forward. But most importantly, I think we need to get the cost of water higher to really reflect what it is costing to deliver it.
And Peter, I wanted to ask you this. Bill Hoffman made the point that you can't get people to maintain their swimming pools properly. So the need for proper maintenance of alternative water sources in order to keep them functioning safely has been widely debated. Do you have any suggestions on strategies to ensure that large and small systems are maintained correctly and consistently?
Well, I guess harking back to my work and experience with the Water Quality Association, there are many water conditioning dealers, particularly with water softeners and reverse osmosis systems that supply a service contract. And I think this is an interesting approach, that they don't really sell the system to the consumer, they lease it to them. And concomitant with that is the service contract. That's certainly one approach that might go a long way to facilitate the maintenance of these reuse systems.
Also, Peter, the green supplement limited the use of untreated gray water to subsurface irrigation to minimize people's exposure to it. A lot of comments were received by the Green Technical Committee that surface irrigation is safe and should be allowed. What are your thoughts on this? Well,
I just finished, actually on the airplane on the way down here, I just finished reading this document that IAPMO was a partner to, and that's the white paper on gray water that was sponsored by AWWA, WEF, Water Reuse, and IAPMO. It's, to me, it's an excellent document, and this gentleman points out a lot of the applications for reused gray water or rainwater for that matter. And he points out something that I think is important, and that is that the critical factor, the critical concern as far as health-related contaminants are microorganisms, and particularly virus and bacteria. And as is correctly pointed out, the difference between reclaimed water, which is correctly defined as the water from a municipal treatment plant, and that's used, as all of you Californians know, very frequently used in the purple, although I call them pink after they've been out in the sun, piping, is that is secondary treated sewage that has been disinfected to make it tertiary treated, basically. Whereas in the gray water or rainwater reuse area, that typically does not include the injection of something like chlorine that would provide a residual disinfectant. As a result, my personal preference would be that without that residual disinfectant in the water, I would be reluctant to say it's no problem to bring it up to the surface. I would limit it to subsurface irrigation. On the other hand, I think one of the great untapped applications for reuse water is toilet flushing. And again, when you bring it back into the house, I think you have to provide the additional safety of a disinfectant.
I can tell you want to jump in here.
I absolutely do.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify the organism or the bacteria in the untreated grey water, from our perspective, it comes down to the effect of irrigation. If you've got 100 gallons a day, if you're disposing of it in mulch basins or similar, there is potential for exposure. You can put your hands in it. But if you're actually irrigating according to your evapotranspiration rates, soil type, plant selection, then 100 gallons goes over 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. So you're talking about a very small amount of water at each location. The reason we can do that is that it's going out every day. So we're not putting out a lot of water twice a week. We're putting out a little water every day. And that reduces the risk enormously.
Mike, Peter mentioned that the water conditioning people will lease their equipment rather than selling it outright. What would you think about that? Would you want to lease your equipment?
Well, I actually wrote it down as a new idea to think about, but the service is an issue. Service contracts, you know, I think should be part of the system. So, yeah, my reaction is leasing the system, you know, could have good possibilities. I've actually talked to a couple of developers with upcoming projects that are proposed to be totally sustainable communities about integrating something like, you know, the number of, you know, products that are out there right now for recycling water for toilet flushing in particular to be part of the water infrastructure that they actually do own and charge a fee for, just like they do the water taps and the sewer fees and everything else, and maintain them. So it's something that I think does have potential.
Now, Mike, you were actively involved in writing the alternative water source chapter of the Green Supplement. Do you feel that the Green Supplement is an effective tool in removing code barriers and allowing the safe and reliable use of on-site water treatment?
You know, absolutely. I think, you know, like pertaining to the first question, though, too, the part that's still a hurdle is where we still have to defer to whatever the local authority have in jurisdiction over, you know, some of the you know, installation procedures or the water quality thing in particular, you know, still makes it difficult.
Another thing, a question, Mike, because of the potential of gray water to contain pathogens and chemicals, should we limit gray water just to residential use only to limit the exposure for the general public?